it. All right, so I'm trying to go back to live stream here.
Got it.
Okay, got it. All right, that's why we see that's why I would be surprised because we heard that sound. So why did that? I don't know. I know we're going into a retrograde. Are we there yet? I don't know. That's my is that what it is? I think it's in August. That's right around the corner. Hmm. Okay. So what I heard from you is that this purple flower is pretty scary, right? Isn't it scary? It's scary. Okay, well, what's interesting, that's also sort of like a reminds me of the horns my husband had downstairs, actually, because I thought, man, those look scary. But the idea of this is working with those big brush strokes and moving the arm. So that is interesting. Actually, if it is interesting to me because when I look at his art that he created, that he was thrilled with, I'm sure. And I'm looking at that going, this really unsettles me. And I would think that that's probably also what happens with this particular painting. It feels very unsettling. And I didn't like that at all. And just, it's just that feeling, just, you know, that go ahead.
Well, Betty was saying early on that, yes, that's how she felt before she worked on it. But having worked on it, she said it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's a go ahead.
I sent mine in late. I sent it in yesterday. I don't know if you got it or not. I know it was late. I'm sorry.
Well, let's see if I pulled it up because I can always try to go in and get that. And let's do this. And I pulled those over here. So let's begin, I guess, just by looking at those.
Well, I'm looking at the one behind you, and it's so much cleaner than mine.
That's why we're doing this. You know, it's oh, Betty, I think I have yours. Okay. So really, that is the point of it because like if we don't have, let's look at this here. I'm just trying to pull my little thoughts together here. So the idea of this is again, like what you're going to hear me say is like to expand your range of value because you can see that's darker. This is a little lighter. It makes it more interesting. And then also what you'll see is a lot of the brushstrokes are very similar in size in many of your paintings. So I want you to notice how this one is a little bigger and then it goes a little thinner. It makes it a little more interesting, right? And then if you notice, like over here, we have maybe a wider area and then just changing. That does look like the horn downstairs, but just changing the size of that and also using the amount of water for more volume with trying to have it not have just brush strokes in there. And it really is about working with your brush strokes with this particular painting and it's just the form of the flower, that's all. And if I'm looking at this one too, thinking, should I have gone a little darker here? Do I want to go a little darker? Do I want to shape that more? I don't really necessarily want to have that stand out. I really want the attention to go back here more than this area. So these are some of the things I'd be thinking about. I can always go back into it. The other thing that we'll think about is as we look at the paintings, like this petal, if you have a stroke on this side, which you could do, sometimes I decide, oh, maybe I want this to come forward. Maybe I want that to go back on this one. Maybe what I want to do is if I put a brush stroke of color here, what I'll want to do is soften that edge so it curls. I don't necessarily just want a brush stroke over here. So let's see what we have. And I think this is going to be I think it's going to be an easier meeting than what we just had. There were too many projects in the other one to look at. So I'm going to crop this down. So Betty, starting with yours, this is the one you submitted? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay.
So I love the colors. I mean, really interesting. Like in the colors that you had in the last painting where you used all those teals, you're very vibrant with what you have here. So looking at your painting, what we need is some darker values in there. Are you done with it? You're not done, right?
Oh, no. Oh, no. I mentioned it was not finished. I I'm I have maybe 2 layers, in some places 1 layer, and I know I need to go in darker. And my problem is, getting darker with the range of colors that I'm using without going to the purple, because I'm not fond of purple, but I think I'm going to have to use purple to go darker.
You don't have to go purple. What you could, how about if you take a little endanthrine blue? Try a little, it'll go, you don't have to add a purple, but use an endanthrine blue. Or let's see, if you're going to stick with this, maybe incorporate a little bit of indigo into that.
Okay.
And that way, you'll get some darker values in here.
Okay.
And okay, and then, you'll see from everybody else's painting too, we're just trying to, oh, I see what you might have done too. And I see what I did here, and I can already project into somebody else's painting what I was thinking about here. So looking at this corner, if I wanted this one, this will be universal to everybody's painting. So if I wanted this petal to come forward, and I may have this lighter, I may not, this area here, but if I want this forward, I'm going to go maybe a little bit darker, because I'm looking at the line that you have there. If I go a little bit darker there and then dissolve that area out, so we have contrast up there, this will pull forward. And then I might decide to incorporate some of those darker values in. Let's see, what am I looking at here? And like, even if you like it to be this light over here, you don't necessarily have to go darker in these areas, but you have to be selective of where you want to curl things over. Like, look at this petal. We want that to come forward. You're going to go ahead and add a shadow underneath that. It doesn't have to be that dark, but we want a shadow, and then you'll go darker. And then do you see how all these other areas are starting to brighten a little bit by going a little tiny bit darker? Oops. And even in this area, I might break that up. So that contrast is going to brighten things. And then once we get through these lessons, or, start working where, depending on how anybody feels, if you're thinking, oh, I really want to apply these techniques into something else, you're welcome to do that too as we continue. Now, don't forget, you're going to get your stamens in down here, right? And hopefully, does this give you enough information for you to continue?
Well, one of the problems I had was just seeing where petals were.
I know. That's why we're working on this.
Yeah.
Because I want you to be able to simplify, because I didn't choose it as a regular flower. I chose it because I want you to see something that's challenging with I'm not trying to paint a pretty painting. What I'm trying to do is work with something that's very dramatic, and then trying to work with the technique. And what do you do? See this area here? This petal comes forward. And in order for it to come forward, we need some contrast. That shadow needs to be underneath here. And back here, we don't necessarily have a hard shadow, but I need that contrast. So I'm going to go ahead and go a little darker back here. But I might, or what I will do, is soften that edge just a little bit, because I want that to stand out more. The other thing, if I want this to peel and curl up, I'm going to use more values down here. I'm going to sink this area into the flower. And I just want to say, I'm really impressed with everybody doing this, because I know it's not necessarily a favorite. I think just imagine this in a 40 by 60. That's I know it's intimidating. Now looking at this here, we want this to come forward. I'm going to go a little darker back there so that stands out. I don't need it to go too dark. This doesn't need to stand out too much, but I just am trying to get a little bit of shape in this very flat looking painting. They're all going to be that way. So, and then for this here, if I want this to pull forward and that to push back, I'm going to go a little bit darker through here. And even if I get a little color here, like that, I could even use clean water and soften this a little bit. I know it's very confusing. I know it must seem like that.
Hmm.
So
So
it'll pull together. Yeah, go ahead.
in the upper left hand, as I'm looking at it, left hand corner where you darkened it, that's a petal behind the larger petal.
Mm-hmm. So in the painting that I'm looking at here, this is actually lighter than what I just did for it. But see, this value and that value are very similar. So somehow we need to create some contrast. So what you could also do, and also I don't want you to get stuck in the idea of what petal. You need to focus on the shapes, because that's what, we always trying to be so analytical and correct. We're working with our brush strokes here, and I want this to push back. Hello, you've got your hello, grandson, granddaughter. Sorry, I just see the glasses.
My great grandson.
Hey there, I just see this
Hello.
much of you. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Hey. So there we go. Okay, so we're going to look at some other paintings, and I'm going to take a screenshot of this. Okay. And then let's get rid of this here. Okay. All right. So Betty, I'm going to go ahead and mute you. There we go. And then looking at this here, I'm looking at your brush strokes. I think you're doing a really great job. And we have a lot of, I'm looking at the size of the lines that you have, and what I'm also doing with my eyes, I am not looking at one particular area or a petal. I'm looking at the overall thing and how these brush strokes are competing with each other, and the amount of water that you have in your water to color ratio is very good, but now we need to again work with more contrast. So looking at what we have here, to push that shadow back, I would have had that be a little more of a little bit, maybe a tiny bit more blue in that, perhaps. Let me think about this. And whose painting is this?
This is mine, Lori's.
What do you think?
And I did have trouble matching my gray down below, because at one point you said part of this is learning to make enough paint mix.
Right. And what did you think about that?
Yeah, it's a challenge to rematch it, even though I knew what colors I used to put the right amount of blue in, the right amount of whatever it was. So it was a challenge.
So exactly. So I think it's a really good learning piece. So if we look at this corner here, I'm thinking like, do I want this to pull forward? Do I want a little bit more color over here? Just I'm repeating basically what I was just telling Betty. And then over here, looking at that line, I like how you have handled this. So if we wanted to clean that up a bit more, if we went a little darker here. Okay, so I don't want that to be brushy, but I want it to be a darker value. Do you see how then this pops out a little bit more? And then down in this area, which we can get a little lost if we go and find like a little shape right through there.
I got lost many times in this painting.
I know. So here's another thing. I would keep my finger pointed on the reference photo and the finger pointed to where I'm working,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
So, I mean, you all deserve a badge. So, what do you think, Sue? I mean, because this is a tough one. What do you think about the process of this?
I
Oh.
think you have to trust the process, because what I have found in most of the huge florals is that I will spend the primary 65% of my time not knowing what I'm painting
Right.
and not understanding how it's going to make sense in the end. But if you follow the steps and you follow as much as you can, then at some point, like at about 87%, all of a sudden things start popping out. And sometimes you don't see it until you finish it and you put it in your living room to look at, and you sit back in your recliner and you go, oh my God, that's what that is. Because it just appears, because you're looking at it from a different perspective. When you're on top of it, you just have to paint the shapes. And if you use if you follow the leader with the shadows and the emphasis on making the paddle push pull, that's what I'm trying to say, to make some go forward, some go back, then eventually you're going to see it, because it is just in the last 5 minutes, it's going to come together and you'll be blown away.
It's always the last 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
And so
wow, that looks so different than my painting.
right? So what I did here, I really appreciated, Sue, having you talk while I was doing this. I just want you to know that. I really did appreciate that, because I think that was really very well done. And it is this process, because what happens is, like, when I started creating this painting style, I originally painted so large that I couldn't see anything. So everything was shapes, and you really don't know what it looks like until you get towards the end. So this is the process in a smaller version. And working with the brush strokes, and we have to think about shapes and values. And like, do you see how this is popping forward right now over here? And then with this here, we have that little bit of a shadow. I don't like that color of that shadow. What I would do is maybe take water and go over that again to soften that edge and push it back a little bit and increase the values. And I would also take a screenshot.
I did.
Okay, good. Yeah. So what do you think about what I've done with this? And let's take a look. See, you have everything there. What do you think, Lori, just by a couple of changes?
Yeah, even like a glaze of the blue indigo or something might help some of those areas quite a bit.
Exactly. So what we're going to do now is that it really isn't about this flower at all. It's thinking about what areas do you want. You're learning about your brushstrokes, water to color ratio. Which areas do you want to pull forward or push back? And, we could even consider doing a more dramatic kind of thing, but it really changes the look of the, I'm going to try to go darker here. Let's say if you glazed over this whole thing, okay, with a light indigo wash. Okay, that'll pop forward. Let's say you glazed over this area, but then it kind of changes the whole shape of it, which can look a little lopsided. See right through there. So that's why I would have a little more light, like what you originally have there. What if we decide to go and add some darker values there? I'm not saying that's what you need to do, but let's just look at it. Do you see what I don't like then, the composition changes. That I don't like that part. So now what we're doing is brush strokes, watercolor ratio, and how to change a composition to where it's more pleasing in this very dramatic, scary flower.
It was very dramatic and scary.
Were you going to say something, Sue?
Yeah, it just calls to mind the thing we were talking about recently is that, and you said it just now, it's not about the flower. And it reminded me that some people come to these florals thinking, well, I don't want to paint Birgit's purple tulip. It's not pleasing to me. So I'll just fix it so that I like it. Well, in doing so, you miss the lesson. You miss the technique that you're trying to teach us, because if we let too much of our pre-existing style creep in, and it's going to anyway, but if we ignore the lesson just to paint it like we always paint it, then we the lesson.
Right.
I guess, and I'm just saying, paint it as she's guiding you, even though you don't want to paint like her. Although I do, but anyway. But
Well,
if you really are married to your own style, what you're here to do is learn your techniques, because your techniques are successful.
Thank you. Well, it's not about painting, and it's really important with what you said, because I'm going to come back to this in just a second. I just want to be able to be here with you first, because it really isn't about the flower. As we know, people wanted to know, how do you paint like me, especially with those large dramatic flowers, and then, but it's more energy. It's really the energy of it instead of the being really pretty or delicate. So how do we take that energy, scale it down into a smaller size? And this is the process of how we're going to do that, because you have to trust yourself. And it's not about being perfect here or trying to create a photo representational flower.
Or even a replication of your flower.
Right. No, it isn't about that.
It's not about that.
Birgit, I do have a quick question that maybe you can help with. Because I live in San Jose and we've been over 100 for so much this summer. It's been nice the last couple of days, but now we're going to heat up again. How can I keep the paper from drying out so quickly? The paints, the paper, everything just dries out so fast. Oh, Gail's asking the same question.
I struggle with that all the time. And you told me to put a wet towel underneath my whatever that is, paper, and then have this sprayer, which I have, and boy, does it make a difference. And when I forget to do that, when the humidity is so low, I literally can't get through a single stroke without it going.
So maybe, what about the humidifier?
Blend and it won't move.
Yeah.
So thank you, Gail.
Job done. So
well, let's ask Carmen and Mitzi down there, because they're right down there in El Paso, and it's got to be hot.
Yeah.
But is it hot and dry or hot and humid? That makes a difference too.
It's hot and dry, but lately it's been hot, dry, and humid. We've had rain for once.
Oh, good. Yay.
So how do you keep, what do you do? Do you use a humidifier, mister?
What I did, went to YouTube and figured out how to keep the paper wet. And I wet my paper in the back. Mitzi just poured the water on the paper. And then we just, I think we ended up laying, I think we did it 3 times. We just kept just painting over and over and over.
Wetted by sections.
Yeah, wetted by sections. The problem was that when I saw Mitzi, she would wet a big section and get water all over the place. And then mine would just have not enough water. And I'd have that, you'll see that scrapey look. that boxy look. So we need to learn how to.
Control
Well,
our
there's a
water.
humidifier
Right,
too.
right.
Sue, why don't you chime in? Because I know you're good at this. You'd like to share that
But
about the
Humid-
humidifier.
yeah, the people who live in the dry climates like Georgia and Las Cruces, and the people that are in Southern California, especially, really the ones who are successful at keeping their paper even remotely damp are the people that have small humidifiers that are designed just for the room that they're in. And they swear by them. I don't need them up here because we have decent humidity. So I don't think I have that problem. But I don't have it like the people out west do.
Well, and also when they change the paper sometimes, then we can have that problem. The other thing I just wanted to mention, like with Gail, it's interesting. So what you're learning right now is how to think like me, right? So why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself for a second? Let's talk about it. Then we're going to go look at more paintings.
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
Okay, I really wish the more I listen to what you say and listen to the lesson more than once, or go back when I want to paint my own thing and listen to not only what you're saying, but how you're approaching whatever you're doing, I'm going, okay, what's she thinking? What's she thinking? What's she thinking? And it's really, really helped me. All of a sudden I don't need to copy the painting stroke so much as I need to understand how you approach paper, paint, and brush and stroke. I have watched you paint a million things. I could sit and be mesmerized and watch you paint all day. But when I get really curious about, okay, what is she thinking? How is she handling her water? How is she handling her brush? What's she doing with her strokes? That's when I feel myself starting to grow. And I want to think like you. Obviously, I'm never going to live long enough to paint like you, but I want to think.
Oh, I don't know. So are you getting that from the videos, or do I need to kind of give you a better, are you getting that from the lesson? Do you get it? Yeah.
What did you? I didn't hear that, I think. I thought you were talking to Sue. Did
Oh.
I get that in this video lesson?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
Absolutely. That's the only
Yeah.
reason I finished the painting.
Oh, good.
And when
Hi,
Then-
you're heavy.
when you give us your every thought, then yes, we always get that. The teacher voice sometimes we don't get a heavy dose of what you're thinking, but you are explaining it, even
Well,
if we don't hear the actual thoughts.
Well, the teacher voice was because that was the only way that I could do this before. And there was no way, because there just was no way to get the audio with that. And so
Yeah.
now there's a way that I could deal with it. And you get, unfortunately, every thought. And so, okay. So we're going to go ahead and continue looking at the paintings here. And so if we look at this here, Carmen, and because I was curious, are you using Arches paper?
Yes, I'm using the Arches 300, and I had struggled keeping it wet, and then finally I wet it in the back. And then I didn't understand what it was, the shape, and I lost the shapes, and then I just started creating my own idea of what I thought it was.
Which
'cause
is fine.
Which I don't understand, like the realism, because I do most, well, anyway.
Right. You're more abstract anyway, aren't
yes.
you? Yeah.
And I'm an abstract thinker.
Okay.
So putting the dark so that the light can come forward, I don't even think that way. So
Interesting.
yeah, thank God Mitzi and I were painting, because she would tell me, no, Carmen, because she paints fabulous flowers.
No.
So she
Well-
would tell me, no, darker there. But I didn't know why darker there. But
Okay.
she would explain it so I could say, why darker there?
Well, so that's interesting also, like being abstract, because it's like we can abstract and just have shapes being on a flat plane, right?
Right.
Or you want to have abstract and have depth. And
Right.
so like looking at what you have here overall, like you're using the same amount of pressure on your brush. Like if we look at this stroke, that stroke, I'm going to actually make this a little bit bigger here. And
Yeah, what I did was I went into my abstract mind,
which is fine.
and that's what I did. And what I'm going to do with this painting is probably turn it into an abstract. Yeah.
That's good, but I want to show you something here. So if we have that and you have your, so looking at this big area here, looking at your strokes here, overall, I look at your strokes are the same size all the way around. So I would
Mm.
say you need more variation in there.
Okay.
Whether or not you're doing abstract, you
Right.
just need more variation. And like I would have some areas wider and thinner and change the size of my brush now and then. It looks like you're maybe you're using 2 brushes or one. What are you using, one or two?
Two. The 30 and the 16.
Okay, so that's okay for right now, but if you're doing, but you notice, see, like you've got this is all the same size, right?
Right.
And
Okay.
here you're using the very tip of your brush to get the thinner part.
Yes.
And so what we need, again, if let's say we want to make it abstract, but I was going to try to go crazy wild abstract, but I'm not. I won't do that. I'll just go, let's use it what you have in your abstract mode, sort of, and let's work again with our values. Okay, so that it becomes more powerful. Does
Mhm.
that help there?
Yeah.
And
So
see,
okay.
go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, that's right. It's because I've done another layer on it since I sent you that one. So yeah, it's darker. So I guess I would go with black on top.
Well, I only have a black here. You don't necessarily need to go black. You could use an indigo or an indanthrone blue and incorporate it. But look at this area here, this brush stroke. There's a couple things you can do. If you wanted to, you could easily, let's do the easy thing first so you can see it. I can either go darker on one side, so I have contrast on this side, or I can go ahead and think about that line and then have maybe soften it a little bit. I might need to come back in, get it wet with a damp brush, get it wet, and then maybe even take a magic eraser and just soften basically the hard line in between the strokes more than anything. But I don't see myself taking the time to do that fussiness. So I would soften for a minute, let it dry, and then I would come back in with on a dry surface and maybe add a few more lines, but I would vary them, maybe add another size brush, maybe a 12 in there, a 12, or maybe even have an 8 handy so you can get a little more control if you want. But let's work with, again, taking that idea and that idea. Okay. And maybe I'd even consolidate a few of these. I want a larger stroke.
I'd like to make an observation. That
Yeah.
looks like you're curving the petals so much just by doing that.
Exactly. Otherwise it's flat. Thank you. Because like if we go dark back here, it's still not going to curve, but that one stroke it's just going to look like a stroke. And then we always see, like you can see all these are very similar. So you can still have it be abstracted. And let's see down here, see how similar this is in basically one color. Let's try to make it more interesting by going slightly darker. It doesn't all need to be the same in here, but just a little more random.
Mhm.
And then if we take this area here, now you could leave this as is, or you could come back in and you could just add water and soften that if you want to. And I'm looking at the pencil lines you have in there. You could come back in with a smaller brush, find your lines if you want to make more of those lines. But I think that with this could be too competitive or competing. So what I want you to do, what in the world, where did my image go? Let's see. There it is. Okay. Okay, and then over on this area, see how the value is all the same?
Yes.
Okay, so then if we go ahead I'm looking for a larger image. Let's get a little bit darker through here, a little more contrast. So I'm changing, expanding the range of values, changing the size of my brushes, softening this edge up here. This is all very the same size. So I might go to a slightly smaller brush, not this small, but it'll give you the idea. I want to change. Let's do this. Maybe I'll even go wet on dry here with a number 8 or number 12. So now I have these 2 areas. See how we have that purple underneath there? We have the light and then we have the purple. And then we have this darker value. What I was also looking at is whether or not you created the foundation underneath it. I'm looking for the wet into wet area. And it looks like you did. So then going to this area, see how that's all the same? So you can, like, these are all very similar in size. So let's say, what can we do to make it easy for ourselves is maybe cover a larger area there. And I mean, really just play with it. Just have, try to breathe through it more than anything, because I think it's already such a scary image that it'll also teach you to, as I'm sure you are very good at, is just relax, because you do the abstractions. So you would be very good at just relaxing through the painting process. Okay, so I'm changing some of the values. This is all very similar. So I would probably have one side a little lighter. I don't know if I want to have you lift it out, but let's just look at what it would look like. And then if we were a little darker on one side, then it just, it starts to get more shape to it, just like this would curl over, this gets more shape. And then for that funny center that we have up here, I'm going to go ahead and work with some, just like I would lift, if you can, a little bit of that out, or there's one little line up here. We're just going to break it up a little bit. I don't care if you have a lot of detail there, just break it up a little tiny bit. Think about those big anthers that come in here. So there's going to be an anther over here and an anther over here. It was also very difficult to deliver that line drawing for this. Very tough. And then, okay, you see how this is developing more?
Mhm. Yeah.
And then over on this side, if we want this to stand out with our mid-range values, or mid-range, let's go ahead and get that. I'm going to get this a little bit larger. Let's sink that into the flower a bit. And then we have, I would change the size of some of these. So let's unify a few of these shapes. I was going to go to a shadow, but let's unify some of those shapes first. So if we take, I think I can do this size. Okay, looking at where it's curving over, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to use a larger pen. Just slightly darker value, maybe using a 12 or a 14 in there. Expand your brush sizes. And then for this, I might find a larger area also, so we don't have as many little strokes. Okay, I'm looking at where this is going to curve. Actually, I might even pull it over to the side. I might consider that. So we're working with our values. Just allow yourself freedom in here, because let's go in here. I wish it wasn't so scary, but
No, I like the challenge. It was really, really good.
oh, good.
It was really, really good. And Mitzi and I do watercolor together, so we had a lot of fun.
Oh, so glad. And it's so nice to see you. So, and also like, I know that you thought that we would have more meetings, but what I'm trying to do is allow you time in between to actually do the painting. Any comments on that from anybody? Any thoughts? Okay, and then back here, I'm gonna go ahead and add a shadow. I think you, more than anything, got lost in the line drawing.
Yes. Yes.
All
And
right.
then when in the line drawing, when I first drew it, for the thick part, I thought it was 2 lines. I didn't know what I was doing instead of just doing 1 line. And then I got lost. I just got lost. Yeah.
You know, well, this was one of the first one. I don't know if it was one of the first ones that it wasn't really necessarily one of the first ones, but I thought in deciding to do this one, it was more of trying to show everybody my process, like what Gail wanted to know, right? So, well, this is it. So, okay, let's look at that and that. See, it'll get, just play with it and see how these strokes too are very wiggly. What I would do is try to reshape some of them, like coming down. So if you wanted to have them be a little more cleaner, I want you to, and you might want to revisit the lesson. Any comments here? Or Sue, do you have any comments on this, on how that might help her?
Well, it's, the lesson encourages us to do the big sweep.
Right.
And this one is working very low on the handle of the brush. You're on the ferrule, painting from the ferrule. And, you can't get the sweep if you're trying to impose yourself on the sweep, I guess.
That's a good idea. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. That's what I'm trying to get to. Looser, bigger, bolder, fearless.
Don't you already paint loose?
Yes, on the abstracts. But
Oh, okay.
for some reason, after my husband died, everything, I just shrunk, just doing little bitty tight things. So I really love the title. That's why I said, I'm going to do this. I called Mitzi. I says, I'm doing it. You're going to sign up too? She says, okay. We like the word fearless.
Well,
that the life trauma makes us pull in.
Yes.
It does. And when we pull in, we try to control everything because
That's
we just
exactly
experienced out of control where we had no control.
Thank
So,
you.
This is your opportunity to, like you said, open the flower back up and allow yourself that freedom.
This is such a process. I mean, this kind of painting really is like therapy. It just is. And also listening to what you were saying, Sue, and thinking about what you were saying, Carmen, it made me think about my husband's little things down there that look so scary. And they look just like these horns coming up. It really does look like, he did. I said, you got to cut them off because it was too dangerous. But it is interesting because he's had a lot of his own family deaths in the not too distant past here. And it is those big sweeping things. It's very reflective. Whatever creative process we do is very reflective of whatever's happening with ourselves.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for the comments.
Well, and also like when I came into the florals, it was, again, never about the flower. We're not trying to paint necessarily a pretty painting. At least that's not my intention. My intention is being more expressive. So looking at Gail's painting here. So Gail, are you with us?
She was.
You
have to unmute.
Didn't I?
There you
now
go.
You are.
Okay. So looking at your painting here, what I really like is the way you handled the shadow here, because I'm thinking it maybe could be a little bit darker, but you handled, and I don't even know about that, because the way you handled it in that value and the amount of water that you used is so effective in pulling that petal forward, and also in this area here too. That's very, very effective. Also, the way that you handled this up here, and then Carmen, notice this area up here and her variation in some of these strokes here, right? See how they're not all similar in size? So, and she's consolidated some spaces and left like small little trails, like going down, like what we were just talking about, some of the detail going down into the ferrule to just pull that little tiny bit of detail in there. That creates some spots that are very restful also, and your use of color is wonderful. Now, was it a little challenging for you to keep the consistency of color throughout the whole thing? Is that
Yeah.
because
Absolutely. This was a really hard painting for me. And I just decided, okay, Gail, stop thinking, do what she's telling you to do and shut up. So, and I stopped my head from yapping, and I just really tried to do what you told me to do and go back and look to see whether or not I was doing what you were telling me to do. So I probably watched it 4 or 5 times with, first of all, okay, paint to paper. I mean, paint to water. That's not my strong suit. Although I learned so much in this, I learned a lot. I'm better. And then the whole idea of values. I know you're always talking to me about values, and in my head, and I'm going, okay, Gail, those values ought not to all be the same. So I kept tearing my hair out trying to figure out, where do I want the petal to sink down and where do I want it to come forward? And that rolling petal over on the right side is the one where I think I learned the most about that, where underneath it's dark and the top is light. Isn't it contrast that made the difference there, or do I have?
Well, you don't have high contrast, but but also what's interesting, the tough thing about this petal is because it would be obvious to put a shadow underneath it. But in order to get that to curve, we need to have a little bit of contrast on this part too, right? So if we go too dark, then we go and create more lines. But what we want to do is try to pull that forward. So you are very successful with this. So, huh?
I said by accident.
It's always an accident. It's always an accident. It's also interesting. It seems to me that like maybe you started in this area.
Actually, I started under the under pedal, under the roll, because it made sense to me. And then I moved to this big thing, which scared the crap out of me. And I was always freaking out about how much paint I still had in my palette. So that one was scary.
So what I would do is either think of incorporating a little bit. I don't necessarily think about incorporating this. I mean, that's going to be very dynamic and strong and maybe even more scary. It's funny that you can have such a dynamic, interesting flower like this and having that lighter value and control in this area. And it's not as scary as having the dark, intense colors, right? This dark, intense values. Here, what I would consider doing is, are you really attached to this color? Do you want that in there?
I'm not attached to anything. I want to do what you tell me to do.
Okay. And then you see how purple that is? I think that this area, this kind of, I like more toned down. Actually, when I looked at mine, I have more magenta in there, which I'm like, oh, well, geez, that's more magenta. But I would actually either glaze over that with a little bit of water and a little bit of that purple color like what you have in here to tone that down. So let's take a look at that. And if anybody has a thought or comment here that you'd like to add that you would think would be helpful, that would be interesting. So if we glaze over that a little bit, I don't want to make it all dark, but we still have that color underneath it. So if you take a little bit of that color, put that on top, you'll still see some of it, but it won't be as loud. And then on this side, that is pretty purple. I might incorporate a little bit of that color into this area here.
Okay.
And I would try to avoid that outline right there and maybe just break that up. What were you going to say? Sorry.
I mean, I just missed what you just said. You said I'd avoid.
Oops, you muted yourself.
Sorry. I got lost when you said avoid that outline. Which outline?
Oh,
That-
this in here, I might, maybe if I break it up a little tiny bit more, you see, so it's not just on both sides,
Got it.
okay? And then looking at this, so I'm trying to like, because that looks like you ran out of color on that side. So it's like, how do we pull it all together? So even if, let's say you don't have that much color in it, let's say you have another puddle and you want to try to pull it into the painting, and this side, let's say, is completely different than that side. So if you bring a little bit of color, maybe what I'll do is show you, so if we do this, I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain it the way that I'm thinking about it, but let's say you had a puddle that wasn't very big, but you wanted to tie your painting together. So even if you incorporated a little bit over here and here, and then a little bit there and there, and maybe, do you see how I'm trying to like pull it through the whole painting?
Yes.
So
That
then that,
balance.
you're right. And this little bit of blue, we don't need that blue in there. It's too blue. And, but see, I actually kind of find that interesting. So when I'd be looking at a painting that I would be doing too, it's not necessarily about the subject. I put it up, stand back, and I look all the way around it. How is my eye traveling in it? And I thought, is there action? Do I want to stay in the painting? Am I pushed out of the painting? Does my eye pull me up and around and back into the painting, which I think is very interesting, because if we look at that stroke right there, even though that's not necessarily meant to be a stroke, but if we have color there, my eye could jump out of the painting, but then it's going to be pulled right in over here. And then it will pull over here. That's what I was always interested, is creating movement in my paintings. That I loved it. In fact, a lot of people thought it was more like a dance, which I like too. I like the thought of that. So having this, maybe incorporating that a little bit. In this area, we have lots of little strokes. Do we want to keep them? Do we want to consolidate things?
I see what you're doing, and it's really making a difference. And now I can't figure out whether I want more red or less red.
Let's take a screenshot.
Okay.
And maybe at the meeting part, the review, maybe I'll try to remember to post the screenshots. So, and then looking at what we have here, if I wanted this to come forward, maybe I would think of going a little bit darker with the shadow through here.
Okay.
So think of this as what you were saying, is wanting to know how to paint like me. You have your structure. Then how do you allow yourself to look at what you have here and make it, what do you want? Do you want movement in there? Do you want it impactful? If you want impactful, a stronger contrast, stronger color, movement. It's like, how do you want to view the viewer, or how do you want to get the viewer to move through the painting?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I was seeing, when I was doing it, I was seeing the outside of the painting pulling me into the center and
Perfect.
down to the bottom. So I wanted that petal on the top left to roll over into the flower, but I didn't do that, so that I'd have both sides, something rolling in. And then I got lost. And then I didn't know what
Are
I
you
was
talking about this petal?
Yes, like the one on this one up here on the, oh, you can't see my hand, on the very top, that right there. I
Yes.
thought that, I wish that I had done that rolling into the center of the tulip like the one on the right, but I didn't.
Okay, hold on. This one right here.
Huh?
So if you wanted that to roll in, do you want this red? I can move that red.
Oh, I just want to know if I wanted to do it next time, I would want that petal to roll into this. I want the eye to start going into the bottom and center of the tulip, but then I'm stuck. So is that not a good thing?
Well, see, no, I think there's a couple things we can do here. So let's say you want this to roll, right? What you could do is apply a little bit of color through here, right?
Mhm.
And then soften that. Like,
Mhm.
you don't even necessarily have to go all the way across. You see how I limited it here and
Yeah.
here? And then we're going to soften it. You're going to pull the water in with a damp brush. You're going to pull it
Down.
over.
Okay.
That's one way of doing it. And if we didn't do it that way, another way of doing that, do you see we have this area here? So you could wet that and then do a wet on dry. Sorry, not wet on dry, wet into wet. Allow the surface to dull down. But I don't think this is what you're looking for. I'm trying to, that keeps the focus here. I
Oh,
think
I
what
see.
you,
Yeah, it does. Okay.
is this what you're looking for? This?
Kind of, yeah. But I think if I wouldn't want to do it on that painting, but if I did it, I want to do it again in a light pink, just for the hell of it. And I want both those petals on the outside to roll in. And I like the back one over there. And I like the center, but I want the center to draw my eye down to the bottom of the painting. So if I have this painting where everything on the outside pulls you into the center, and then my eye gets stuck down at the bottom center, is that a bad thing to get your eyes stuck somewhere? Or is that something you're looking for as a focal point?
Well, we can also, right, you can also call it, that's where you want this is going to be a focal point anyway. It's going to stand out. So what I would also do is think about getting a little bit of a shadow on that side, go a little darker on that side in a sense. Like I have a very light shadow down here, or just to kind of sink it in, because that was my intention also. I might go a little bit darker through there. That then becomes very straight through here. So I thought, how could I incorporate? I would want to incorporate that a little bit through there. And that is very purple. So I would want to bring some of that red in there, or tone it down a little bit. So I don't think just purple is going to work very well for it. And you could try to curve that a little bit. And the other thing, you handled your brush strokes very nicely through here. And let's see, do I want to go any darker through there? I think that, okay, so looking at that, maybe I'd go a little darker through here. I might bring a little bit. So I'm trying to get more of that, what I think you want. Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you.
Oh, I'm trying.
Right.
I wonder what, go ahead.
This is Lori. To curve the left side, would it help if the curve in the petal, it looks like it's, really curving, if the white areas were a little straighter? So it didn't look like it was curving down before it comes up?
Oh, here on this side?
Yeah.
I don't think, oh, a little straighter?
Unless
Not
I'm seeing
necessarily.
it differently than you do.
Well, I'm wondering, I'm just going to test something. What if there was a little bit of that's if it wanted it shiny, that would be so. I'm not going to suggest that. I don't think that that's going to work very well. And I think that, again, just to kind of experiment with it. If so, that's not what I want. I would do more of that, a little bit darker there, and try to, because it's all very flat on that side. You could also come back in, and I think that's going to happen, Gail. I think you're right on track there. And
Thank you.
also if let's go maybe a slight shadow back in there, glazing over it. And then this is going to go a little darker maybe through there.
More screenshots.
Well, I think it becomes more powerful. Okay. All right. But I think that's enough to kind of move you into it. The other thing is, notice that we have the blue and the pinks over here. I might glaze over that a little bit. So it's
Softer.
a little bit. Yeah. I don't think I did a great job there, but I think that. But see, you did a gorgeous job like this too. And with my pens, it's kind of clunky. So,
Birgit, I have a question for Gail. Gail, are you a flower painter? Because you seem to think flower and you talk flower language. Because I don't know I don't understand those words. but you're using
Ah.
the words of something, but are you a flower painter?
I don't know that I'm a flower painter as much as I am a gardener. And I
Oh.
do know what tulips look like. So that's why that's where my
Oh.
brain goes.
Yeah,
I-
because these words you're saying that I want and I know. See, I didn't know anything. I said
I don't
could
either. I'm learning,
abstract
but I do
brain.
know what the center of a tulip looks like. And on the iris, it's driving me bat crazy because I can't figure out where the petals are compared to an iris that I know what it looks like. So that's sometimes helpful and sometimes it's a crazy challenge. But yeah, I love
Because I could see the separation.
You've
of-
already done that one, Birgit.
Oh, okay, thanks, Laurie. Okay, thank you. And then let's look at this one. All right, so then, so, I mean, you could have kept talking if you wanted to, but I wanted to just move on to the next one. Now with Pat too, it's interesting to look at your values there. So Pat, what are your thoughts?
This is my third attempt. In the first two, I thought I was going to give up on the class. So that was terrible. I'm not a quitter, but I just felt so, I don't know, just frustrated.
Well, you
Didn't
know, I'm so sorry to interrupt here. So what I see is that you have a really good use of your values in here. I mean, you've got strong color in here. You've got good brush strokes. I think what's happening is that you came in and you were very bold with your sweeping strokes, which was great. And then you lost control over where I need to go, right?
That's
So
exactly right. And even right, the third time I really tried to look, what are these petals doing and what are you doing in your demonstration? So I had a little more luck, but it's still, yeah, very much a work in progress.
well, I think this
getting-
is actually pretty interesting that if it's cropped off over here and you have some nice, you have a lot here, which is working well. This is working out very well. You did well, a nice with your shadow through here. So we just need to clean it up a little bit. And like looking at this, that we want to pull that together. Let's consolidate a couple of those areas right through here. Let's consolidate a couple of these. Even if it's a two-tone, that'll be fine.
Sure.
Okay, so right there. And what I'm going to suggest is that you slow down a little bit now in this area because you've already done the big sweeping stuff. Now take a moment and just clean it up. That's all you're doing is cleaning it up.
Mhm.
And then over here, we have our pestle. Let's get a little shadow. Let's go a little darker through here. I could only go so dark with this little transparent pen.
Mhm.
Yeah, see, it doesn't want to do it. So let's separate. That'll separate those two. All right. And I'm going to suggest that you go down to a number 8.
Okay.
And let's find this through here, find some shapes. We're just gonna, if you go back to your reference photo,
Mhm.
try to find those large shapes and just kind of, it's just cleaning it up. You've done the sweep. Now we just need the fine tuning. And I wonder if I can do it with, what is this gonna do? I was wondering if I could be more solid, but either it's going to be too dark. Oh, look, that disappears on me.
Mm.
So, but I think you get the idea, right? So let's,
Yeah.
because this isn't going to be that helpful for you, I think, trying to do it this way.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the photo is really cut off. I realize I'm looking at my original, and none of the left-hand side is showing beyond.
Well, it's also
Yeah,
very
there's-
interesting this way too. Also, let's go down here and let's leave that alone for a second. And get a little bit of a shadow underneath here. We're going to consolidate some of those lines because your lines, there's a very even pressure to them, the same size. Let's try to make them a bit more random. Take your time through that. Don't be so wiggly now. You've already done it. You've done the big flowing stuff. Scale, pull it in.
Mhm.
Okay. And then get your, your anthers in here.
Mhm.
And let's see what happens. Take your time with that. Does that sound okay?
Sure. Yeah, good
Do
suggestions.
you have any other questions on that one?
No, not at this point.
Okay. All righty, then I'm just going to take a look. We have a couple of our these that came in, and let's take a look at those. Oh, I guess just two came in. All right. And so, okay, Pat, this is yours. And so what was interesting too is that I really liked what you've done. And I think it's fascinating. I don't necessarily need to even suggest anything to you. What I do see is that you have very much regular little strokes that would be very similar to what you did in your big tulip there. So kind of have a little more of a flow to your stroke a little bit to where you not just short dab, 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 just kind of practice with the length and the width. You did a beautiful job here. And also your use of values is very nice. Like you have nice petals through here. And I have to go back and look at my original. I never did this again other than the original lesson. And I think you're doing really great with that. You could always add another background if in there if you wanted to, but that's not necessary. In some classes, people do. And let's just take a peek at what that might look like.
That would be great.
So let's take a look here. So you like, let's say you wanted to add some greens. Let's just see how it can change it. And again, the colors that I have are very limited. And what if we have maybe a little blue up there, just to kind of get an idea of what you can consider doing. And then you could come back in with some different darker stems and leaves if you wanted.
That's true.
So the other thing I would suggest is using a Duralar wet media film and placing it over the background and then painting that. And then that'll help you have an idea, or print this out on regular paper and then try to, play with the background, and that'll give you an idea too.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then let's go, and here, I'll do a screenshot of that. And then here. Oops. Okay, and so Gail, so you're doing a really good job. So yes, you're missing your values. So I don't have I guess I could find, like even mine, when I look at my painting, this was done on a Fluid 100. And I did not focus on, I'll show you mine right here. I did not focus on adding values because really all I wanted to do is play with the brush stroke and change it from wide to thin and dissolve some edges. And that was the point of that particular thing. But looking at what you have here, I thought, what can we do? So let's say we want to pull this forward, push that back. Then we're going to go into some darker mid-tone values. Okay, so let's say I'm going to go a little darker through here. This is not going to be an ideal color, but then that would be lighter. And I could look at the reference photo. I don't have it with me right now. We'll focus on this at our next meeting. But that should give you, do you have any thoughts on this, Gail?
I did.
I'm sorry. Oops, you muted yourself.
Wrong way. I did go in with darker colors under the blue petal that's coming forward, and then it made the purple part go over the blue part. So I went back and I pulled it out. Thank God this is on 300-pound paper because I've done the thing but erase it. But right here, I went darker. Now I took that out. Do I go darker here on the blue?
I need to look at the reference photo. Oopsie. I don't have the reference photo. Yeah, I can go ahead and look at actually in the class. And then I'm going to let everybody go. I know we're over.
Sorry. We do this next time.
Oh, well, Let me just take a peek at this. Because my thought was not necessarily trying to make it look exactly like the reference photo.
Oh, there's,
Alright, oops, it's sideways, so that's not going to work. And see, mine was only lines. Okay, so what I need to do is get out of that for a second and I take a screenshot of that. And I do want to acknowledge if anybody wants to leave, I totally, I want to thank you for being with me. I'm going to just look at the reference photo for a second. And okay, that's good for me to see that this is sideways. I think I'm gonna. Okay, there we go. This was another reason why I chose this one was for one, it was the variegation of it, and also that it was hard to see the values. And I wanted to just show you, I usually use crummy photos. And I wanted to think about what do I want to pull forward. So looking at this here, this is a PDF, so that's going to be a little, I don't know how it's going to be as far as showing you. So looking at this here, like you were just saying about the top up here, I'm looking at this.
Mhm.
Okay, and then I'm looking at this right through here. I usually, if I want to push that back, I'm going to go darker there, but I'm thinking about curling this. So I'm going to localize that in that area. And I think probably we should focus on this at the next meeting. Also, this area, don't go so blue, maybe tone that down a little bit right in there. And down here, if you want to make it more representational, you can. That was just about brush strokes. So you see what I'm doing through here?
Birgit, as I recall, this wasn't even in the course.
I
Within the
see.
class, was having trouble with the brush strokes and he was getting hung up in all the petals and you did that demo of it just to show him how you could paint that iris and just use single brush strokes throughout.
Mm-hmm. Well, this was, I added this to, oh, do you think they should just jump to the cactus flower?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm
Oh.
just saying that it happened because somebody was having trouble with brush strokes. And you said, well, you don't even have to do anything but use brush strokes to paint this iris.
I'm so
Or
glad.
he brought the iris. How would you paint that? And you said, I would just use the brush stroke. And then you did it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Bingo, bingo.
I
Top
just,
your head.
well,
Maybe
thank you. Well, so then I think then what we're going to do is, yeah, because it was really work. It wasn't really about painting the flower, but if you want to paint the flower, you can. If you want to work with your brush strokes, you can. That's really the idea of that. And then we move into the orange flower, like the orange cactus flower back here. If you have a different type of cactus, like I really wanted to paint other cactus flowers. I just didn't have any other reference material. And like that, well, this one over here, wherever it is, that one over there was just the squished version of that. And because that was going to be for taking it to a workshop and what we could manage and how to handle your color, I think this is a much better version of that. And I think you'd enjoy that more. Oh, sorry, I'm going to sneeze. Okay. All right. So, what do you think? Is there anything I can add and, or any comments or questions before I let you all go?
Thank you, Birgit. You're always wonderful at answering all our questions, and I hope I didn't hog too much space, but thank you so
you don't.
much.
Oh,
My
you
brain
did just
is like,
fine. I just want to make sure you have enough and that you're getting
yeah.
enough from the class and that you know, I know it's a scary purple painting.
Well, I would say we're not getting enough because we can't do brain osmosis, but we're just getting where we are.
Can we
And
do
what
a
we
brain
need to
transplant?
Yeah, that's right.
Birgit, so finish our the purple ones we started and then start the iris.
Well, that's going to be up to you. And because what we've done is we have evaluated them. If you want to continue doing them and put them back in, you can. But if you want to move forward, if you've just had enough with it, go ahead, move on to the next one. Move on to the iris, or you can even move on into the cactus if you wanted to. Whatever how much time you have to paint, and whatever fits into your schedule. Oh, come to
So the cactus
Texas?
is in this class too, the class.
To Texas.
Oh,
Which
I
one?
haven't seen it.
The
Oh,
orange cactus, yes.
oh, I didn't know the orange cactus was in this class. Oh my God. I've been in
Yeah.
June. Oh, okay.
Now, if you want to start that and have fun with that, are there any comments of what you think can make this better for you, this experience?
Practice.
Yeah.
Practicing your comments on what we do, I think is fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
And everybody coming together. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Well, it's so nice to see you again. I do think about Cloudcroft, but gosh, we can do so much just doing it this way too.
Yes.
And, so, okay,
Uh,
everybody.
Birgit, do you plan to offer more of the classes like this in the future?
Well, Sue, do you hear that? Well,
We used to offer them 3 at a time, back to back to back, but that was
Oh,
too
that's a
much.
lot.
That was
Well,
too much. So
yeah.
we're easing back into it.
Well, it's
We'll
just
have a
go
couple
ahead.
more this year.
Oh, good.
Right. Well,
Thank you.
I'm trying to figure out what people want. What would you like?
Everything. People want everything.
And
Yeah,
I love
and
the 6-week classes. I love them. It's where I really learn.
Do you like the 6-week?
I
We
do.
did-
I
We didn't
like
have a
it.
lot of people sign up for it.
well, maybe that's a good thing.
It was really a good thing.
I
I
don't
liked
think
that.
people- I don't think people.
Um,
sign up
My
for it.
issue
No,
is that, of course, we're going to travel in the middle of it, and these big paintings just don't travel well.
No. We're thinking about, and I haven't had time to even talk to Sue about it, is having like the 1-day workshops or things like that. But then you don't have a chance to really, like here, you can really talk to each other. And usually we would have a lot of students. And I do like that this is much smaller, and I just don't have the time right now. What do
We
you,
need to, what we need to do is a poll of the interactives that you would like to deal with, and then ask people which ones they want, because we are just pitching them in the dark, hoping
We
we
are.
land on the right ones. Maybe we didn't land on the right ones, but everybody here is having a fun time,
I'm
and
thrilled.
they're learning.
I'm thrilled
And
with who. Go ahead.
It's not like the demos where you have a big group just watching. So you can set a class limit size.
I know, it's just the time, the time
Yeah.
and what works for me and my schedule. And for a 6-week commitment. And if I have a small group, that usually means then the price goes way up, which,
Yeah.
or do I keep it a manageable fee and then have more students, so that's that. Is there any particular subject matter that you would like to see come up? You girls get to be the first ones. Oh gosh, I'm thinking about that one that we did back there in Wisconsin. So look at that smile. Maybe we need to.
Do that one. There's
Which
one
one is that?
pink flower that is just fantastic that you actually posted in the last couple of days. And I want to do that flower,
What
but I
did I
can't find it
post?
anywhere. Is
What
that the
did I-
one you did?
What did I post? Was that me?
Yes, you posted 4 little paintings next to each other on your
Oh.
school. And the pink one, you don't have in there anywhere, and I want that one. So,
Oh, the
where-
hollyhock?
Oh, I'd love to. do
Yeah,
that.
the
Where
hollyhock.
did you see
You're
it,
gonna
Gail?
get the hollyhock. You're gonna get the hollyhock.
But it's not a video. I
It
have
doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be.
That's right, doesn't have to be.
So this is what, let me show you girls. You get to have the first peek at this. So let me go into, and if you have to leave, please, I'll see you next time, but I'm going to show you what I have. Sneak peek, because I've been doing these downloads and I want to give back. And
Oh, you give back a lot.
Well,
I
thanks.
already do, darling.
Well, and also I want to get more people into the school, you know, so because like one thing that Sue and I have talked about, and I'm sure that a lot of you have seen too, there's all these other organizations that run multiple instructors, or they, you know, it just doesn't, the way they do it is not the way I want to do it.
Right.
And let's see, what do we have here? Let's see if I can pull this up as,
Birgit, is your work in galleries anywhere?
no, I need a gallery. You know, I can really only do so much, but I have thought about it. It used to be in galleries, and
Pain in the butt.
it is a little bit of a pain. Okay, here we go. I pull this up. Why I started teaching was because the galleries wanted me to do one thing, and I wanted to do something different. So this was the one that's the workbook that I have coming up. You get to see it in its raw form. And this was the reference photo, because it is challenging to have a good reference photo in a way. And I have it in one of my original books. And this is a step-by-step. So it shows you that you can do it, but it's not with a video. I guess I'm definitely open to suggestions if you want to try to work through it. You know, I mean, I'll listen to what you girls have to say here. And I just thought maybe I would offer this as a free PDF to get people into the school.
I think it's
Right.
a great idea.
And then, like, I also thought that this would be a very nice idea, coming up with a painting, but then there's so much space behind it. And like, if we did a wet and a wet in the background there for even this composition, then where do you keep the focus? I mean, there's like, I could actually do something like that if you get the free PDF, work on the flower, and if you want to come and evaluate your paintings, and we could, I don't know, what do you think, Gail?
I think you should do what makes financial sense to you, and the rest of us can just deal with it. But I'd love to paint that flower. My other thought is, Birgit, I don't think enough people have seen your interactive lessons to know what they're missing when they don't sign up. And
It's been 18 months.
Huh?
It's
What'd
been
you say?
18 months since we had one, really.
What I'm thinking is everybody who's in this class really ought to send out a note. If you enjoyed this class and you learned from listening to her think, you ought to be able to use us some way, shape, or form to put out there, you know, to our friends or something. Look how much fun this was. Look how much we learned. Look how much you can, you know, jump into her brain and pick up all this information. And it's cheap. I mean, it's not that expensive to get this much of your time. It's such a deal. I can't believe the place isn't crammed with bodies like it used to be. And I don't think we need to get as much attention as we're getting right now to benefit from what you're doing. I mean, I got more attention today than I think I've ever gotten in one of your interactives, and I thank you, but I have been thrilled with any interactive one you've done. I can't tell you how much I've learned. So they're my favorites. The problem with the workshops is they never seem to be when I can go. And you know, then you're working, trying to figure out when are people available. Well, good luck with that. That's very difficult.
Yeah, you have to do your schedule.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
maybe like somehow to be able to get a testimonial like what you just did there,
Yes.
you know, and like
Yeah.
if I can record that and then put it, which this would be recorded, but then maybe I just need to take the time to do that and then have that on the website. And
yeah,
so
I think you
somehow,
should take advantage of all the people who already think you walk on water rather than giving stuff away. I mean, really, you give away so much anyway that use us, Birgit. Good for blabbermouthing.
well, I got burned a couple of years ago, and so I try to be very careful with that. Yeah. Yeah.
Be selective.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it a lot, and I would appreciate testimonials, and maybe Sue will work on that. I mean, even if we had something like this to where just recording it somehow, that would work.
I have
Yeah,
an idea.
Get
Call
us
me
to
later.
rave about
Call me later.
give stuff away.
Okay. All right, ladies, I should let you go. Thank you so very, very much. And I look forward to seeing you. And if you know what kind of, well, you just told me you want to do the hollyhock. So I'll see if I can. I just need a moment to be in the studio. It doesn't take me long if I can just be left alone from the people around me.
I'd love to
Pat, you
see,
know what I'm talking about, right? I can see Pat's nodding her head. Yeah. Oh my God. It's like, oh, leave me alone.
I'd love to see you do the lighthouses again. That was really fun.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know, okay. So then here is the other thing. So there you are. I'm going to show you this too. Wait a second before I get there. Okay. So
Yes,
Sue, you must be
we-
happy that we're talking
we can-
about this. I would
We
think
can
what?
do that. We can do that bit.
Yeah, but this was going to be just
Mini
a
workshop.
workshop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
lighthouse.
And so Gail, what days can you come? Is there a day that doesn't work for you?
My favorite day is Monday, and but right now things are crazy. I think Saturdays and Sundays are great for 90% of the population. I think that, Fridays are iffy because people are always busy doing something. But I mean, if I know far enough ahead of time, obviously I can make something work. But sometimes Tuesdays and Wednesdays are when I work hard, my long days. And so getting in there for Tuesdays and Thursdays is tough, but I'm not the person you're trying to make happy. There's just a whole lot of people with crazy schedules. I think maybe if you do workshops, you ought to alternate them on different days of the week as they go, like do a couple Friday, Saturday, do a couple Sunday, Monday, do a couple to whatever. I mean, just roll your workshops. Don't always have them on the same day. That would be my only recommendation.
Well, so no, I've run the regular workshop, a couple, this workshop, a couple, well, not this workshop. I haven't done this one. Well, actually, this one we did do in the seascapes, but this would be a workshop to where it's using the idea of a very loose painting style. And when I thought, how do I want to do this workshop? Because I used masking in here. And I thought, well, I can go ahead and show them how to do this without the masking, and that would be one option. So there's a couple ways of doing it. And so we have all the step-by-step in here. And this was going to be, that's just a little workbook. That's nothing in particular. But
We're working on a list of workshops, and that's one of them. We have several, and whenever we can figure out when Birgit can do it, we'll release a schedule. We're hoping to offer some before Labor Day, but
Birgit, you
let's see.
wanted to bring more people into the school that have not painted with you, then I would start with the ones that people usually like to do, like the loose sunflowers and stuff, and the pears. Those are relatively easy to
there
get
you go.
started.
Yeah.
What's wrong? To get
No,
started.
she's right. Sue's been saying the same thing. No, go ahead. Go, please continue.
I think you want to tickle people that have not already painted with you to come and give it a shot without it being something that even looks like, if you showed me this cactus flower and I had never painted with you before, I would have taken the workshop to watch. I would not have expected to paint with you. But if you did the pears and the sunflowers, and there's other ones in there, or the adobes, I think, oh my God, I ought to be able to do that.
I haven't done the adobes. Yeah, forgot about them. We have so much inventory, and that's why we created the membership too, is because there's so much inventory. But yeah, you know what? That's a really good idea too. So
sucks people in to something they think they can do.
Exactly. I'm gonna find a pen. Well, Sue.
I got it. But I already know it. It's already written down in my book.
The Adobe. Write the Adobe down.
Those
Okay.
barns, the set of barns, there were, I think, 4
Those
paintings of barns. They were simple and they were effective, and everybody in my family that saw them just loved them, and
They are wonderful.
That's a good
Those are
idea.
wonderful barns.
I don't know if you know any way you can promote that for getting
Well,
people.
Well,
But
it's my life right now, which is so complicated. It's like running over there and being with my mom. And then like yesterday, like Sue got a text, like I ran over there yesterday. And so I was trying to get some email. I said, well, what can I do for you, Mom? Let's do this. And I was exhausted of having my granddaughter all weekend long. And then it was like, well, let's go someplace. No, I don't want to go anywhere. And then I thought, well, what do you want to do? And I'm thinking, I can't just sit here. Not right now. Yeah. So, and then my granddaughter coming up this morning. I want to go to work with you, Mom, Grandma. And I thought, okay. So you right, Pat? Does that make so
Yeah, you're
struggling?
sandwiched.
It's tough. Okay, ladies, I'll let you go. I'll try to post that. I made a little video of my granddaughter. I think I'm gonna try to post that too because it was really funny. And I think she might be she just wants to come up in the studio all the time.
Oh,
Anyway, I'm not going to bore you with that. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
I'll catch up with you soon. Take care. Happy painting. You're doing so
Thank
good.
you.
Such
care.
troopers.